The Christmas lights were still twinkling when I heard it. That sound. You know the one, the wet, hungry sound of a kiss that doesn't belong to you. I was standing in my own hallway, holding a tray of gingerbread cookies I'd spent 3 hours decorating, wearing the ridiculous reindeer apron my husband bought me last year as a joke, and I heard my marriage end in real time. It came from the living room, our living room, the one with the fireplace I'd spent all afternoon decorating with garland and stockings that spelled out our names, Mark and Elena, and Together Forever, in glittery red letters I'd hand-stitched myself like some kind of delusional Christmas elf. My hands went numb. The tray tilted. 12 perfect gingerbread men slid onto the hardwood floor in slow motion, their icing smiles cracking into jagged, mocking grins. And I just stood there, frozen, because part of me, God, the stupidest, most hopeful part of me, was still thinking, maybe it's the TV, maybe he's watching some romantic movie, maybe I'm hearing things because I've been up since 5 a.m., baking like a Hallmark protagonist who doesn't know her life is about to become a true crime podcast. But then I heard her laugh, her, breathy, delighted, the kind of laugh that sounds like silk sheets and secrets. And I heard him, my husband of 9 years, the man who promised me forever in a botanical garden, while Can't Help Falling in Love played on a single violin, whisper back, God, I've missed you. That's when the floor didn't just drop, it disintegrated, and I fell straight through 9 years of anniversary dinners, mortgage payments, late-night talks about baby names we'd never gotten around to using, and every single time I convinced myself that the distance between us was just normal, temporary, fixable. I fell through all of it and landed in a new reality, one where I was the fool, the joke. The woman too busy baking cookies to notice her husband had been sampling someone else's dessert. So I did what any rational person would do in that moment. I walked into that living room, and I looked. He was on the couch, our couch, the one we picked out together at IKEA, after arguing for 45 minutes about whether grey or beige was more timeless. She was straddling him. Her red dress, the kind that costs more than our monthly grocery budget, was hiked up around her thighs, and his hands were tangled in her blonde hair like he was drowning, and she was air. The Christmas tree blinked behind them in cheerful, oblivious reds and greens. Bing Crosby crooned "White Christmas" from the speakers. And under the mistletoe, I'd hung with such stupid, blind optimism, my husband was kissing another woman like she was the only gift he'd ever wanted. They didn't even notice me, not at first. I just stood there in the doorway, apron strings dangling, gingerbread crumbs on my hands, watching my life rewrite itself in real time. And then, because the universe has a sick sense of humour, Mark opened his eyes, our gazes locked. For one perfect, crystallized second, I saw it all. The guilt, the panic, the calculation. He was already deciding which lie to tell me. The woman, I didn't know her name yet, but I'd learn it soon enough, followed his gaze and turned to look at me with the kind of casual curiosity you'd give a stray cat. No shame, no fear, just mild inconvenience. Like I'd interrupted her yoga class. And that was the moment something inside me didn't break. It sharpened. Because I realized this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice he'd made over and over again every time he texted her while I was asleep, every time he told me he was working late, every time he kissed me goodnight with her perfume still on his collar. He'd chosen this, and she'd chosen to be complicit. So right then, standing in that doorway with Bing Crosby serenading my humiliation, I made a choice too. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't throw the cookies or beg or collapse into the messy, dramatic breakdown they probably expected. I just smiled, a small, cold smile that tasted like metal and gasoline. And I said very quietly, "Merry Christmas, Mark." Then I turned around, walked back into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of the expensive whiskey he'd been saving for New Year's, and started planning the most satisfying gift I'd ever give, his complete and total destruction. If you've ever wanted to serve ice-cold justice to someone who shattered your trust, hit that like button right now. Subscribe, because this revenge story is about to get nuclear. And trust me, you're going to want to hear how this ends. Before we dive in, let me just say, this isn't one of those stories where the wronged wife quietly accepts her fate and moves on with dignity. No, this is the story of how I took everything he loved, everything he thought was untouchable, and burned it down so thoroughly that even the ashes apologized. So buckle up, because what I did next changed all of our lives forever, and I don't regret a single second of it. Let me back up. Because to understand why my revenge was so perfectly, brutally satisfying, you need to understand who Mark and I were before that Christmas Eve. We met in college, University of Washington, sophomore year, some terrible frat party where the beer tasted like cardboard and the music was too loud to think. I was a journalism major with big dreams and bigger student loans. He was pre-law, charming, 6'2" with dark hair, and this lopsided smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He made me laugh. He made me feel seen. And when he proposed 3 years later, ring hidden in a bouquet of sunflowers because he remembered they were my favourite, I thought I'd won the lottery. We got married young, 24, fresh out of grad school, broke but optimistic. I took a job at a local newspaper, grunt work, obituaries and community bulletins, but it was something. Mark went to law school, then joined a corporate firm downtown. The money was good, really good, and somewhere along the way, we stopped being a team and started being logistics. He worked late, I worked early. We saw each other on weekends, maybe, if neither of us was too tired. Sex became scheduled. Literally, we had a shared Google Calendar event titled Us Time every other Thursday at 9 p.m, which is exactly as depressing as it sounds. But I told myself it was normal. This was what marriage was: compromise, routine, choosing each other even when the spark dimmed. I chose him every single day, even when he stopped choosing me back. The affair started, I'd later find out, about 8 months before Christmas. Her name was Vanessa Colburn, 31 years old, corporate consultant, the kind of woman who wears stilettos to the grocery store and somehow makes it look effortless. They met at a work conference in San Francisco. He told me it was boring legal stuff. I kissed him goodbye at the airport and told him to bring me back some sourdough. He brought back her phone number instead. I didn't know. God, I didn't know. I thought the distance between us was just life. I thought the way he stopped reaching for my hand in public was just him being stressed. I thought the new cologne, the gym membership, the suddenly meticulous grooming routine, I thought it was a midlife thing maybe, or him wanting to feel good about himself. I encouraged it. I told him he looked great. I was proud of him. I was the stupidest woman alive. Christmas Eve. I'd taken the day off work to prepare. Mark's parents were coming over for dinner. His mum, Patricia, who'd never quite forgiven me for not giving her grandchildren yet, and his dad, Robert, who mostly just wanted to watch football and avoid conversation. I'd spent weeks planning. The menu: honey glazed ham, roasted Brussels sprouts, garlic mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce from scratch, and a chocolate peppermint trifle that took 4 hours to assemble. The decorations. Every inch of our house looked like Santa's workshop had exploded in the most tasteful way possible. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted us to be perfect. Because maybe, if I could create one flawless holiday memory, it would remind Mark why he married me in the first place. Pathetic, right? But that's where I was, trying to bake my marriage back to life with gingerbread and denial. Mark had texted me around 3 p.m. Running late, client meeting went long, be home by 6, love you. I believed him. I always believed him. I put the ham in the oven, set the table, lit the candles, and kept checking my phone like a teenager waiting for prom. 6 p.m. came and went, then 6:30, then 7. His parents arrived at 7:15 and I made excuses. Traffic, work emergency, you know how it is. Patricia gave me that tight, disappointed smile she specialised in. By 7:45, I was panicking. I called him twice. No answer. I texted, "Where are you? Your parents are here." Nothing. And then at 8:03 p.m, I heard his car in the driveway. Relief flooded through me. Thank God he's okay, he's here. And I rushed to the door, ready to throw my arms around him and forgive everything because that's what I did. I forgave. He walked in looking flustered. His tie was loose, his hair was messed up, and there was a smudge of red lipstick, red fucking lipstick, on his collar. "Sorry I'm late," he said, breezing past me. "Traffic was a nightmare." He didn't kiss me. He didn't even look at me. He just walked straight to the living room, greeted his parents, poured himself a drink, and acted like everything was fine. And God help me, I swallowed the lump in my throat, smoothed my apron, and followed him. Dinner was agony. Patricia complained about the potatoes being a bit bland. Robert fell asleep in his chair during dessert. Mark checked his phone every 5 minutes, smiling at the screen in a way he hadn't smiled at me in months. And I sat there, watching my life from the outside, thinking, this isn't real, this can't be real. But it was. After his parents left, finally, mercifully, I started cleaning up. Mark disappeared into the living room with his laptop, claiming he had emails to catch up on. I scrubbed dishes until my hands were raw, I wrapped leftovers, I blew out candles, and then I decided to make one last batch of cookies, gingerbread men, Mark's favourite, because maybe, just maybe, if I brought him something sweet, he'd put down the laptop and talk to me, look at me, see me. So I mixed the dough, rolled it out, cut the shapes, baked them, decorated them with icing smiles and gumdrop buttons. It was nearly 11 p.m. by the time I finished. The house was quiet, except for the soft hum of Christmas music I'd left playing. I arranged the cookies on a tray, took a deep breath, and walked toward the living room. That's when I heard it. The kiss, the laugh, his voice low and rough with want. God, I've missed you. And my world ended. I stood in that kitchen for exactly 4 minutes after I walked away from them. I know because I watched the clock. 11:47 p.m, 11:48, 11:49, 11:50. Each minute stretched like taffy, thick and suffocating, while my brain tried to process what I'd just seen. My husband, another woman, in our house, on Christmas Eve, while I'd been baking him cookies. The absurdity of it was almost funny, almost. At 11:51, I heard movement, footsteps, panicked, hushed voices, the front door opening and closing, an engine starting outside. She was leaving. Of course she was leaving, because Mark needed to do damage control now, needed to figure out which lie would stick, which version of the story would make me the crazy one. I poured another whiskey, waited. At 11:54, he appeared in the kitchen doorway. His shirt was buttoned wrong, his face was pale, and he had the audacity, the sheer, breathtaking audacity, to look at me like I was the problem. "Elena," he started, voice careful, measured. "Let me explain." I took a sip of whiskey, said nothing. That wasn't what it looked like. I laughed. It came out harsh, jagged, nothing like my normal laugh. "Really?" I said, "because it looked like you were fucking someone else under the mistletoe I hung." He flinched. Don't be crude. Crude. I set the glass down hard enough that it cracked. "You're worried about me being crude. Elena, please, just let me explain." "Oh, I'm dying to hear this," I said, crossing my arms. "Go ahead, Mark. Explain how your tongue ended up in another woman's mouth in our living room on Christmas Eve while your wife was baking you cookies. I'm so curious." His jaw tightened. "You don't understand. Things between us, they've been hard." "Hard," I repeated flatly. "Yes, hard. We barely talk anymore. We barely—" He gestured vaguely. You're always working or tired so it's my fault. I didn't say that. You just did. Silence. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaled slowly, a technique I recognized from his courtroom days, the one he used to appear calm and reasonable while eviscerating the opposition. Vanessa and I... He paused. It just happened, okay? We connected. She understands me in ways you... Don't, I said quietly. Don't you dare finish that sentence. But he did. In ways you haven't in years. And there it was. The truth he'd been hiding behind late nights and client meetings and that stupid fucking Google Calendar event. I wasn't enough. I had never been enough. And instead of talking to me, instead of trying, he'd found someone shinier, someone easier, someone who didn't expect him to be a partner. How long? I asked. Eleanor. How long, Mark? He looked away. 8 months. 8 months. I did the math in my head. Our anniversary dinner in April. He'd been texting her under the table. My birthday in June. He'd bought me flowers with her advice, probably. The weekend trip to the coast in August, he'd called her from the hotel bathroom while I was sleeping. Every moment I'd thought was ours had been a lie. Do you love her? I asked. Maybe I wanted him to say no. Maybe I wanted proof that this was just sex, just a stupid mistake, something we could survive. But Mark, my husband, the man I'd built a life with, looked me in the eye and said, I don't know, maybe. Maybe. That word should have destroyed me. It should have sent me to my knees, sobbing, begging him to stay, to choose me, to try. But instead, it did something else. It freed me. Because maybe meant I'd been mourning a marriage that had already died. Maybe meant I'd been fighting alone. Maybe meant I deserved better than a man who couldn't even commit to his betrayal. So I nodded slowly, picked up my purse and said, I'm staying at a hotel tonight. Don't call me, don't text me, don't follow me. Eleanor, wait, don't. I walked past him, grabbed my coat and left. It was snowing. Big, fat, picturesque flakes that looked like a fucking Hallmark card. I sat in my car in the driveway, engine running, watching the Christmas lights blink in the windows of the house I'd turned into a home. And I didn't cry. Not yet. Because crying meant accepting that this was happening, and I wasn't ready to accept anything. I was ready to plan. I checked into a Marriott 3 miles away. The lobby smelled like pine and cinnamon, and there was a massive Christmas tree in the corner surrounded by fake presents wrapped in shiny paper. The clerk wished me happy holidays with a tired smile. I nodded numbly and took the key to room 308. Inside, I sat on the edge of the bed, generic comforter, bland artwork, the kind of room that exists everywhere and nowhere, and finally let myself feel it. The rage. It came in waves, hot and choking, burning through my chest like acid. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break things. I wanted to go back to that house and light it on fire with both of them inside. But more than that, I wanted him to hurt the way I was hurting. I wanted him to lose something, everything. I wanted him to wake up one day and realize that destroying me had been the biggest mistake of his life. And slowly, sitting in that anonymous hotel room at 1:30 a.m. on Christmas morning, a plan began to form. I didn't sleep. I spent the next 6 hours on my laptop researching. Washington is a community property state, meaning everything acquired during the marriage is split 50-50 in a divorce unless there's proof of fault. And infidelity, that's fault. Big, glaring, undeniable fault, but I needed proof. Concrete, irrefutable evidence that Mark had been cheating. So I started digging. His phone records, I had access to our shared account online. I downloaded every text, every call log going back 12 months, hundreds of messages to a number I didn't recognize. Vanessa's number, I'd later confirm. Late night calls, 2 a.m. conversations, text sent while he was supposedly in meetings. Miss your taste. Can't stop thinking about last night. She suspects nothing. She suspects nothing. I took screenshots of everything. Then I moved to credit card statements, dinners at expensive restaurants I'd never been to, hotel rooms in Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, flowers, dozens of bouquets sent to an address that wasn't ours. Jewelry purchases I'd never received, a weekend getaway to a bed and breakfast in the San Juan Islands, the same weekend Mark told me he was at a legal conference in Spokane. Every transaction was a knife, but every transaction was also ammunition. By 7 a.m., I had a file folder on my desktop labelled Evidence, containing 400 plus screenshots of text messages, 8 months of suspicious credit card charges, call logs showing daily contact with Vanessa receipts for 2 hotel stays, a fucking Valentine's Day card he'd sent her, found via his Amazon order history that read, "To the one who makes me feel alive again." Alive again, as if I'd been killing him. I sat back staring at the screen and felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. This wasn't just a divorce, this was war. At 9 a.m. on Christmas morning, I called my college roommate, Jessica. She answered on the 3rd ring, voice groggy. "Elle, what's wrong?" I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, there was a long silence. Then, "Burn him down." I laughed, a brittle, broken sound. "I plan to, but I need help." "Anything, name it." "I need a divorce lawyer, the best one you know." Jessica worked in family law. She wasn't an attorney herself, but she knew everyone in the field. "I know someone," she said slowly. "Rebecca Tanaka. She's a shark, Elle. She destroys people for a living, but she's expensive. I don't care." "Okay, I'll text you her info, but are you sure? Once you start this, there's no going back." I looked at the evidence folder on my screen, at the texts, the receipts, the proof of every lie he'd told me. "I'm sure," I said. Rebecca Tanaka's office was closed for the holiday, but she agreed to meet me on December 26th. Her firm was downtown, sleek and modern, all glass and steel. She was in her late 40s, perfectly tailored suit, sharp eyes that missed nothing. We sat in her office while I laid it all out, the affair, the evidence, what I wanted. She listened, occasionally taking notes, and when I finished, she leaned back in her chair and smiled. "This is a slam dunk," she said. "He's handed you everything. Community property, evidence of infidelity, financial infidelity via hidden expenses. You're going to walk away with more than half." "I don't want more than half," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "I want everything," I continued. "The house, the cars, his retirement accounts. I want him to feel what it's like to lose the life he thought was untouchable." Rebecca's smile widened. "I like you," she said. "Let's make him regret ever looking at another woman." The divorce papers were filed on December 28th. Mark was served at his office, in front of his colleagues, his boss, the partners he'd spent years trying to impress. Rebecca made sure of that. She wanted it public. I wanted it humiliating. He called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer. He showed up at the hotel that night, pounding on my door. "Elena, please, we can fix this. Don't do this." I opened the door just wide enough to look at him. His eyes were red. His hair was a mess. He looked like a man coming apart at the seams. "Good. You had 8 months to fix this," I said quietly. "You chose her instead." "I made a mistake." "Yes," I agreed. "You did, and now you're going to pay for it." I closed the door. He kept knocking, kept shouting, until hotel security escorted him out. I poured myself a drink and smiled. The next 3 months were a masterclass in systematic destruction. Rebecca was relentless. We subpoenaed everything: bank statements, emails, phone records, credit card transactions. We deposed Vanessa. That was particularly satisfying. She showed up in a designer suit, all confidence and poise, thinking she could charm her way through it. Rebecca tore her apart in 45 minutes. By the end, Vanessa was crying, admitting to the affair, admitting that Mark had told her he was planning to leave me, a lie, admitting that they'd had sex in our home multiple times. multiple times. In our bed, probably. On our couch. In the shower I cleaned every week. Rebecca got it all on record. Mark's lawyer tried to fight it, argued that Washington's no-fault divorce laws meant infidelity shouldn't impact the settlement. But Rebecca was 3 steps ahead. She argued financial infidelity, that Mark had used marital assets to fund the affair. The hotels, the dinners, the jewellery, the weekend getaways. All paid for with our money. Money I'd earned too. Money that should have gone toward our future, toward a house fund, toward starting a family, toward us. Instead, he'd spent it on her. The judge was not amused. In March, the settlement came through. I got the house, appraised at $650,000, nearly paid off. Both cars, 70% of Mark's retirement accounts, half his annual bonus for the next 3 years. Full reimbursement for every dollar he'd spent on Vanessa, totaling $47,000. Mark got his clothes, his law degree, a 1-bedroom apartment in a bad part of town, a reputation as a cheater. Oh, and one more thing. Rebecca made sure the details of the affair were part of the public divorce record, which meant anyone Googling Mark Holloway attorney would find it. His firm quietly suggested he pursue opportunities elsewhere. He was fired, but I wasn't done. Because there was still Vanessa. And Vanessa had made a critical mistake. She'd posted about the affair on social media. Not explicitly, she wasn't that stupid. But there were photos, her and Mark at restaurants, her wearing jewellery I now knew he'd bought her. Captions like, "Finally happy," and sometimes the best things are worth the wait. She'd made their affair public, which meant I could too. I created a fake account, compiled every photo, every caption, every piece of evidence showing that she'd knowingly pursued a married man. And I sent it to her employer. Vanessa worked for a boutique consulting firm that prided itself on integrity and family values. They didn't take kindly to employees who destroyed families. She was let go within a week. By April, both of their lives were in shambles. Mark was scrambling to find work, living in a shitty apartment, drowning in legal fees. Vanessa had moved back in with her parents, struggling to find a new job in an industry where reputation is everything. And me? I sold the house, couldn't stand to live in it anymore, not after everything. I took the money, paid off my student loans, bought a small condo downtown with a view of the water. I got a new job, senior editor at a regional magazine, better pay, better hours, better everything. I started therapy, I started running, I started rebuilding. 6 months after the divorce was finalised, I ran into Mark at a coffee shop. It was pure coincidence. I was meeting Jessica for brunch and he was in line ahead of me looking small. That's the only word for it. Small. He'd lost weight. His suit was rumpled. He had dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he froze. For a moment, we just stared at each other, and then he said, very quietly, "Elena, I'm sorry." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No rage, no grief, no satisfaction, just nothing. "Okay," I said. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but—" "You're right," I interrupted. "You don't." He swallowed hard. "I lost everything," he said, and his voice cracked. "My job, the house, Vanessa left me. I have nothing. Part of me, the old me, the version who'd baked cookies and hung mistletoe and tried so desperately to save us, wanted to comfort him. But that version of me was dead. She'd died under the mistletoe on Christmas Eve. So instead I smiled, small, cold, final, and said, 'Good.' Then I walked past him, ordered my coffee, and met Jessica at our table by the window. We spent 2 hours laughing, planning a summer trip to Italy, talking about anything and everything except him. And when I left, I didn't look back. People ask me if I regret it, if I went too far, if destroying his life, his career, his future was worth it. And here's the truth. I don't regret a single thing. Because Mark didn't just cheat. He disrespected me. He took the trust I gave him, the love I offered freely, and he used it to cushion his betrayal. He made me the punchline of a joke I didn't even know was being told. And Vanessa? She wasn't an innocent bystander. She knew he was married. She chose to participate. She helped him lie to me every single day for 8 months. So no, I don't regret making them face consequences. I don't regret fighting for myself when no one else would. And I don't regret showing them that betraying someone doesn't come without a cost. Because here's the thing about revenge. When it's done right, it's not about anger. It's about justice. It's about saying, you don't get to hurt me and walk away unscathed. It's about reclaiming your power, your dignity, your life. And that's exactly what I did. So, if this story gave you chills, if it made you want to stand up and cheer for cold, calculated justice, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done in my situation? Would you have forgiven him? Or would you have gone even further? And if you want more stories like this, stories about people who refuse to be doormats, who fight back, who serve revenge ice cold and perfectly seasoned, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, I've got plenty more where this came from. Thanks for listening. And remember, karma might be slow, but you don't have to be.